Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We're just like everybody. We want to finish as high as we can in the league, and we're trying to get our ninth, which 500 record in the ACC is pretty darn good.
Well, it certainly would be good for Clemson to get a win tonight and have a chance to finish with a 500 record in ACC play. As Brad Brownell said, it is something that is not the norm for Clemson basketball, historically speaking. Anytime the Tigers can finish around 500 or above, that's considered to be a pretty good basketball season for them in ACC play. And right now they've got themselves in position to do that, but they've got to beat a desperate NC State team tonight here at Little John Coliseum. The Tigers are 16-12, 8-8 in ACC play. The Wolfpack 17-12, also 8-8 in ACC play. Phil Kornblut with you from up at Clemson. The Tigers and the Wolfpack tipping it off at 9 o'clock tonight at Little John. We have the Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia. Kevin McCrary taking the night off. For some reason, he thought it necessary to go to Charlotte to watch the Slackers play the Hornets tonight. Now, he's in a kind of a weird situation, Pro, because he's going there as a fan, and so as a fan, you like to see your team win. However, he wants his team to lose to try and improve its status for the NBA draft, trying to get that number one pick. Me personally, I like what my Celtics are doing now. We're a competitive team. We've got a chance to make the playoffs. If you have a chance to make the playoffs, why not go for it?
Well, I mean, you got to, in my opinion. But see, here's the difference. Your team is a young team, and any experience they get in the postseason is good. The Lakers are still, in my mind, an aging team, and they need to rebuild. So both of you are doing exactly what you need to do. And that race for that 8th spot in the East, I know everybody talks about the West, but when you look at the Nets, Indiana may get George back. That's going to be a tussle who finishes number 8. I think, 4 or 5 teams are about a game and a half out of that 8th spot in the East.
Yeah, but let's face it, the East is so bad, and with Chicago having its injury problems, it's weakened them. Cleveland's coming on, and LeBron sort of put it into playoff mode now, so they're playing better, but they're really, in terms of a great team in the Eastern Conference of the NBA, there really isn't one. All the great teams reside out west. Tonight here on Sports Talk, we will update you on Clemson baseball. The Tigers are in a tussle right now with Winthrop. The good feeling from beating South Carolina in the series is not going to last all that long should this score hold up for the Tigers. They trail 5-2 in the top of the 6th. Meantime, USC still on with their baseball game tonight at Carolina Stadium against Charleston Southern. We're going to open up the phone lines. Haven't had a chance to take many calls here of late. Want to open up the phone lines, hear what you have to say about the ACC and SEC basketball races and the baseball series just completed.
Are you here now?
We're excellent. Phone number on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. Lines are open. Want to jump to your calls here early in the program. Like to catch up with you on the baseball series completed yesterday, the upcoming basketball tournaments, especially, I guess, the only, well, besides what Wofford might do in the Southern Conference and what might happen in the Big South, where you've got, of course, Charleston Southern, you've got Coastal Carolina, you've got Winthrop, all with really legitimate hopes going in to that tournament of winning and getting to the NCAA tournament. And South Carolina and Clemson, of course, looking more towards the NIT at this particular time than anything else. And the USC women, of course, they've got their eyes set on the big prize, legitimately thinking about winning a national championship. And today, Dawn Staley was named the co-coach of the year in the SEC. She shares the honor this year with Vic Schaefer from Mississippi State. South Carolina's Tiffany Mitchell repeats as the player of the year. The freshman of the year, of course, is Asia Wilson from USC. Jordan Jones from Texas A&M, the defensive player of the year. Kentucky's Jennifer O'Neal repeats as the sixth player of the year. And USC's Alicia Welsh was named the Scholar Athlete of the Year. First team All-SEC, Mitchell, Welsh, and Wilson. On the second team from USC, Elena Coates. Wilson named to the All-Freshman team, and Coates named to the All-Defensive team. Southern Conference honors today go to Wofford's Mike Young as the league's Coach of the Year, second time for him, and Wofford's Carl Cochran was named the Player of the Year. Furman's Devin Sibley was named the league's Freshman of the Year. As far as the all-conference team from the Citadel, Ashton Moore was named to the team. From Furman, Stephen Kroon, and from Wofford, Carl Cochran and Lee Skinner. On the all-freshman team, Jake Wright from the Citadel, Daniel Fowler, and Devin Sibley from Furman. And that is it for the awards for the Southern Conference. USC equestrian team moves into the #1 ranking in the country. That was announced today by the National Collegiate Equestrian Association. It marks the program's first #1 ranking of the season, the first time atop the poll since they were ranked for a school record 20 consecutive weeks during the 2013-14 season. So I guess we could say they're not horsing around over there at the barns in Blythewood.
You got to start doing recruiting on the riders and horses. I guess you have to recruit good horses too.
Well, you know, the teams share horses. They use the same horses, I believe is how it works. Teams don't bring their own horses. They
don't bring their own horses?
They don't bring their own horses. I think you have to use the horse. You have to use the horse that you rode in on, I guess. Georgia's #2, Baylor is 3, TCU is #4, and Oklahoma. You would think Oklahoma State would win this thing every year. I mean, they are the Cowboys, or Cowgirls, as the case may be. They're #5. And you would think SMU would be pretty good. They're the Mustangs, but doesn't always work out that way. Making your plans for SEC Media Days? Well, on Monday, things will get started with 3 teams. Monday, July 13th, by the way. Auburn, Florida, and Vandy. All right. Then on Tuesday, it'll be USC, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. Wednesday, July 15th, we have the pleasure of Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Missouri. Wrapping it up on Thursday, July 16th, LSU, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So make your plans accordingly. There is tournament basketball tonight. It's the Atlantic Sun getting things underway, and in Spartanburg, USC Upstate will be the home team, and they are the number 3 seed, the Spartans are. They'll host the number 6 seed, Kennesaw State, in the quarterfinals of the Atlantic Sun tournament. They play those quarterfinal games on home courts. And what else did I want to mention to you? Newberry's going to hold its pro day, its football pro day, this Friday, 10 a.m. on the Newberry campus. So Edmund Robinson, who recently participated in the Combine, will be one who will be watched certainly by the pro scouts. He was also in the East-West Shrine game. So that's coming up on Friday. And Coastal Carolina's announced its 2015 football schedule. It begins September 5th with a trip to Furman, followed by a game the next week at South Carolina State. We are assuming there will be a South Carolina State come September 12th. Pro, will there be a South Carolina State on September 12th?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Let's hope so. Then they have 4 straight home games: Western Illinois, Bryant, Alabama A&M, and Presbyterian. Then an open week, and then a trip up to Monmouth, and a trip to Charleston Southern. Then in November, home game with Gardner-Webb, and then Kennesaw State, and they wrap it up at Liberty on November 21st before going, they hope, into postseason play. Update the Clemson baseball game for you. It's raining. It's cold up here at Clemson. They're playing over at Doug Kingsmore, and Winthrop with the 5-2 lead. The Eagles had a 3 spot in the 5th inning. They had a 2-1 lead. They put 3 on the board in the 5th. That makes it 5-1. Make it 5-2. Clemson has scored a run in the bottom of the 5th. That made it 5-2. 5-10-0 for Winthrop. 2-5-1 for the Tigers. Clayton Schmidt has come on to pitch for the Tigers. They started Charlie Barnes, and he went 3 innings, and then Schnell came in, Alex Schnell, who pitched so well in the South Carolina series and had pitched well this entire season, but did not pitch well today. 1 2/3 innings for him, 3 earned runs allowed, walked 1, gave up a couple of hits. Barnes gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs, and now Schmidt's in the game. For the Tigers, they're going to have to rally. They're down 5-2 to Winthrop as they play in the 6th inning over here at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. And as I mentioned, South Carolina and Charleston Southern scheduled to mix it up tonight over at Carolina Stadium, the first true home night game of the season for the Gamecocks. All right, 800-956-7266. Phone number here on Sports Talk. We're going to open up the lines and take as many calls as we can, as many calls that want to come into us tonight. We will drop in a couple of more interviews from Clemson spring practice number 1 yesterday. Tigers not practicing today. We heard from Deshaun Watson last night, and we'll hear from maybe 1 or 2 more players tonight. That'll be coming up a little bit later on in the program. 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, it's @SportsTalkSC. The website is sportstalksc.com. And on Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. That's how you can connect with us in a variety of ways every day of the week here on Sports Talk. So, the Tigers feeling really good coming off their series win over the Gamecocks, but right now it's baseball. You turn around and play the next day. That good feeling doesn't last for very long when you go out and possibly lose at home to a Big South team.
Well, that's what I was asking Barkley Radebaugh about, because it seems today, especially, Corn, that teams, even if they're very good, consistently from a mental standpoint, they seem to can't get on an even keel to deal with each opponent each day as another assignment. It's almost like they hit a high and then they decompress the next time out, and when you do that, you can get caught. And as you say before, a lot of your good feeling of having a big win is having a letdown and lose a game you shouldn't. And that gets back to the Clemson basketball team. I think for the most part, Corn, in the ACC season, I think Clemson has done a great job of winning the games they were supposed to win, except for maybe that Georgia Tech game in Atlanta. I thought they should have swept Georgia Tech this year. But, you know, what catches up to Clemson is those tough losses, those bad losses they had in the non-conference schedule.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, to your calls in a moment. One more Clemson note. Tomorrow, prior to practice, they're going to dedicate the monument from the win over Oklahoma in the bowl game. Look for that tomorrow. Back in a moment. Nine five six 7266 the number, and we promise phone calls tonight. Let's get to it. We go to John in Charleston. First up here on Sports Talk from Clemson and Columbia. Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, doing well.
You're on the air, sir. Go right ahead.
All right, I'll make this short. I know a lot of people want to talk, but first off, I'm a College of Charleston graduate, but I've been a Gamecock fan since I was 6 years old. I remember the Suggs-led Gamecock football team. I remember that Coach Frank McGuire coached basketball teams, and it was great to associate myself with a winner. So with that being said, let's talk about the women's basketball team. Can you say choke? I mean, I'm trying not to be too hard on them, but talent-wise, they clearly have superior talent. They also have superior talent through Connecticut. Lost that one. I guess you have three tiers in basketball, and you have Connecticut, and all the rest make up 2 and 3. Then moving on, baseball. I mean, it kind of breaks my heart to see the team losing ground, since Coach Tanner stepped down. I think it's obvious to everyone that each year, I think we've been a little worse. And this year, still early to tell, but I know that Coach Albrook is a great guy, but you can't pray yourself to a championship. You got to play yourself to a championship. And I'll move on to my next point, and that's the basketball, the men's basketball team. My gosh, you think it's painful to watch those games. Imagine being down here in Charleston and listening. It's more painful to listen to the games. So-and-so comes up, shoots, miss. So-and-so, miss a rebound. I mean, it's crazy. At some point, you have to know how to put the ball through the hoop. And I'm just amazed, with 20 and 30% shooting. My goodness, Coach Frank McGuire would roll over in his grave. And with that being said, I'm not a real happy Gamecock fan so far this year. Maybe you can say some things that would make me feel better. I'm going to leave Coach Spurrier out.
You're not a fan unless you get some pain. That's part of being a fan. This is your time to get pain. You've beaten Clemson in 5 straight series, 5 years. It's time for some pain now. You're not a good fan unless you have some pain.
You're
pain
not
is
going
what
to
you
win
have.
them all.
That's
You're
my
not going to
point.
win them all. And, the things that you talked about, I mean, the reason you're feeling the pain is because the teams that you mentioned had all achieved a high level of success, and then they've had bumps in the road, and you don't expect it. Thanks for the call. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut up at Clemson. Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia with State Man Graham Pope. 800-956-7266 is the number. Get back to your phone calls. A couple have dropped off, so lines are open. Taking your calls throughout the program tonight without a whole bunch of interruption. Chip Weil will join us in the bottom of the next hour from Darlington to talk a little NASCAR from over the weekend. 800-956-7266. Going back to the previous caller, talking about the various Gamecock teams that right now are letting him down. Again, you talk about USC baseball and the fact that they had won 5 straight series over Clemson and had a 4-game winning streak against the Tigers going into the series. All that came to an end, of course, and with great success and reaching great heights, sometimes comes a step back and a step down, and you're kind of seeing that not across the board in Gamecock athletics, but the football program took a step back this past season. Baseball team this weekend took a little bit of a step back, but let's see what happens moving forward. Again, I think both coaches will tell you, and we're seeing it today from Clemson, that series is not going to define either team for the entire season. They still have a long season ahead with many big games and many stunts to face, and it's all about what you do that day in baseball, not what you've done previously, and we're seeing that today with Clemson as they're having their problems with Winthrop here at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. They're in the top of the 7th. It's a 5-2 Winthrop lead, and the Eagles have runners on the corners with 2 men out, so they got a chance to pad their lead. They've got 12 hits off Clemson pitching. South Carolina could muster but 4 yesterday, and Winthrop here's got a dozen against Clemson pitching thus far. Tigers with 5 hits and 2 errors. So after playing good baseball against South Carolina, they've committed a couple of errors today, and I'm sure Jack Leggett's not going to be real happy about the team's performance today if this holds up and keeps moving the way that it's moving. So you just can't draw a conclusion. And, again, Chad Holbrook would tell you that last time they lost a series to Clemson, the Gamecocks went on to win the national championship. And Clemson also went to Omaha. So it's not the end of the world. I know a lot of Gamecock fans feel like they have some sort of a birthright to beating Clemson after the years of success, and that's not the case, and vice versa. So when you have programs that are relatively even in terms of coaching and personnel and funding it's going to go back and forth. There's not going to be – you might have some periods of time where there's one dominating the other, but the pendulum is going to eventually swing back the other way.
And sometimes it's a good thing because, getting down to it, Phil, there's good, healthy competition. And and even in South Carolina's dominance, if you had to be happy for anybody in winning, it's Jack Leggett. I mean, I think if a guy did not deserve the heat he's had the last year or so, it's been Jack Leggett. And just to see him at least, have some success. If you're just a fan of good people, good coaches, you got to think that, there's some relief off his shoulders. I know Gamecock fans don't want to hear that, but as you say, the pendulum does swing. And let's face it, just in sheer talent alone, Jack Leggett's teams aren't going to always lose to South Carolina. It ain't going to happen. And this is one of the years that Jack Leggett has a leg up on South Carolina in the series.
Mm-hmm. I will say, though, from being at 2.5 games, the full games at Clemson and in Greenville, then I had to leave in the 6th inning yesterday to get back to the studio for the show. The series, maybe because none of the games were close. I mean, Clemson had the big win at Doug Kingsmore, put the game really out of reach by the thing when they had the 8-0 lead. Kind of took all the drama out of it. Then the game that South Carolina won in Greenville, Wynkoop shut down the Tigers, and the Gamecocks won that game. What was it, 4-1? I think it was.
Yeah.
And then Clemson pounds the Gamecocks yesterday. So it really was a series disappointing to me in the aspect that there was no drama We didn't have any trash talking. Not that let me phrase that correctly. Let me put that in the proper context. I don't mind a little backbiting between heated rivals as long as it stays on the field and it doesn't develop into anything more than that. And we had no controversies. We had no heated bats. We had no flipping of the bats. No warnings from the umpires. Really, no arguments. We had no arguments from the coaches with the umpires. Really, from that standpoint, it was a pretty bland series compared to what we've seen between these two teams in recent years.
Well, I think that's true, but you didn't have any sun out to heat any bats, so that. And I thought for a series like this, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I thought the weather had a lot to do with it. I mean, the weather was not good. At least have the sun out a couple of days during this series, and
it was nice yesterday. Yesterday it was 70s in Columbia.
Yeah, that's the one thing they had, and then of course then the weather wanted to change again, which it has in Columbia today. I didn't have a coat on yesterday. Today I got my coat back on. But yeah, you're right. There was no drama. There was no ninth inning big hit. No late inning heroics. I thought for the most part, as you say, Wynkoop pitched well, but I thought that game was in the balance. If Clemson would have pulled off, maybe a big inning or whatever. But I thought what it showed was even with the new baseball, if you've got good pitching, that's going to outweigh any bats. And I thought, if anything, South Carolina, the shoe flipped as far as defense is concerned. I thought Clemson played, for the most part, stellar defense in the series, while South Carolina just booted the ball around, especially yesterday, and committing those 4 errors.
Yes, they did. And obviously, Chad Holbrook was not happy at all with the performance of his team, and he was even less happy when word was passed on to him that some of the players were saying some things like, they weren't fired up, they weren't all that emotional to play, and that kind of stuff. I'm sure somebody had their butts chewed out in that locker room yesterday when the team got together, because that's the one thing Holbrook doesn't want to hear. He doesn't want to hear excuses. And, of course, there should be no reason, as he said, a beautiful day, home game against Clemson. There's no reason for his players not to go out and play with extreme effort. But then again, in baseball, when a pitching staff shuts you down, it kind of makes you look like you're going the motions on the other side. Now, the Gamecocks did make some foolhardy plays in the field yesterday, and they did not have very many aggressive hacks against the Clemson pitching staff, but their pitching was so good, they just basically took them out of the ball game. All right, 800-956-7266. That's our number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Lines are open if you want to join us. Had a couple of folks drop off during the break, so lines are open back up now if you want to join us on the program and to share your thoughts about the baseball series just completed, or a little spring football conversation if you want to as well. Clemson underway with their spring football practice. It'll be brief. They'll have another workout tomorrow, and then they've got spring break coming up here pretty soon, so that will interrupt their spring practice. And South Carolina's going to wait until after their spring break is over before they begin spring practice and then run all the way through it. And it'll be interesting, really, both places defensively, with what Clemson loses, replacing those guys on defense, and then with what South Carolina's adding in John Hoke and switching things up pro as they make the shift back to more of a 4-3 look rather than their base 4-2-5.
Yeah, and let's face it, when you said that South Carolina took a step back, let's face it, let's call it what it was. Their defense took a step back, because if they played even a modicum of defense like they played the last 3 years, that team was another 11-2 team, but they couldn't stop anybody, especially in the last 10 minutes of a game.
Even when somebody gets hurt, so we're just back to the next man up with the new season.
Can the defense be as good
as
it was last year? Last year was really, really good.
I think so. I think the defense will be just as good. Never really drop off.
Any extra motivation for you?
Am I in queue right now? All right, 1, 2. Update the situation at Duck Kingsmore Stadium. It's 5-2 Winthrop. They did not add any additional runs in the 7th. They had runners on the corners. 5-2 Winthrop over the Tigers in the top of the 8th inning. And the Tigers now into their 5th pitcher. Vetzel has come on to pitch for Clemson. They've used Barnes, Schnell, Schmidt, Krall, and now Vetzel pitching for the Tigers, who trail 5-2. By the way, South Carolina, Charleston Southern tonight. The pitching matchup will be for USC freshman right-hander Tyler Haswell. And he does not have a record so far this year. He's worked a couple of innings. For Charleston Southern, sophomore right-hander Dennis Buckley. No record, of 4.35 ERA. He's worked 10 innings so far this year. Actually, Haswell has pitched 1 inning so far this year, and he walked 2 in that inning. So the freshman right-hander Tyler Haswell to start for South Carolina. We head back to the phones to Charlotte, and it's Sammy with us next on Sports Talk. Sammy, how are you? Welcome into the program.
Fine, thank you, Phil. Quick question. I was reading in the paper this morning that Dawn Staley made some apology to the Kentucky basketball team, and I just didn't know anything about it, just was curious as to what that was all about.
Yes, in the game Sunday, they were playing in Lexington, and Kentucky was beating South Carolina pretty soundly. And there were just a few seconds to go, maybe 25, 30 seconds to go. The Kentucky coach called a timeout to take his seniors out and let them get applause from a sold-out crowd. They had over 12,000 sold out at Memorial Gym. They don't play at Rupp. They play at Memorial. I think it's called Memorial Coliseum there at Kentucky. So he calls a timeout. Game is, a blowout, and he wanted to take his seniors out. And for whatever reason, Dawn took exception to that at that point in time, and then realized later on that she was out of bounds with that, and she called them and apologized and then issued an apology publicly via Twitter. So I think she was, not to make any excuses for her, because she was out of line to question what he was doing. He wasn't doing anything to show them up. He was taking his seniors out so they could get a round of applause. But I just think she was totally frustrated.
I agree with you. I mean, I understand when you're getting your brain speed out, everything looks black, if you know what I mean.
And she was frustrated over the way her team was playing. This is 2 years in a row now where they've clinched the SEC regular season championship, or at least a tie for it, and then they've gone out and played poorly after that.
Yeah.
And
because I watched a little bit of the game, and I kept thinking, well, they'll come back. They'll come, but they never could. It seemed looked like.
No,
But anyway,
it was
thanks
wasn't
for the
their day.
info.
Yeah.
It's just no substitute for winning, is it?
That makes everybody happier, so it seems. Of course, I guess even winning doesn't make everybody happy. I guess
and
it's a lot like money. People think you have a lot of money, you're always going to be happy. People think you're always winning, you're going to be happy. But maybe there's some people who aren't happy even when they're winning.
No, in fact, some people are happy when they're unhappy. It's everything is relative. South Carolina defeats a team by 30. It's a blowout. And South Carolina loses, and fans say, boy, the women got their brains beat out, and they got beat by 11.
Well, it was bigger, but it was bigger than that. They were down 20-some. They were getting dominated.
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky just dominated them, and they made a run and got it back into single digits and put a scare into them, but Kentucky held them off. It's one of those deals where they had dug themselves such a deep hole, and then they climbed out of it, and they got within shouting distance of the lead, but couldn't sustain it, and Kentucky pulled away down the stretch. But that you have to listen. Here we go again with South Carolina women's basketball. Not that anybody should be spoiled by what they're doing, but they've been so good here the last few years, and now they're going to go into the SEC tournament. The pressure will be on them to win the tournament because of the way they played the regular season, even though they are sharing the regular season title. They beat the team that they shared the title with. The pressure will be on Dawn to win the SEC tournament championship because they have not played well in the SEC tournament, even with these really good teams she's had in recent years. And then, of course, the pressure will be on them to get to the Final Four. If they don't make the Final Four, it's a disappointing year. That's what's happened when the program reaches this height. You don't make the Final Four, it's a disappointing year.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to just lower it a little bit, if they don't make the elite, at least the Elite Eight, because they've been to the Sweet 16 twice. It's time to kind of divide that by 2 at least. And of course, you want to get to the big dance. I'm always of the feeling, and I know people hate to see it, is you need to get slapped in the face right before postseason. For some reason, remember now, if you look at recent years, Kentucky has won the title when they've gotten slapped in the face in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, so is Georgia going to slap Kentucky in the face tonight?
That could happen.
In Athens?
That could happen.
Probably. We'll continue with calls in the next hour. We're also going to hear from DJ Reader. DJ Reader from Clemson. Is that correct statement? We're going to hear from DJ Reader and maybe Sharon Peak as well, a couple of the Tiger football players who met with the media yesterday. Let's get to recruiting for you on this Tuesday night here on Sports Talk. One of the most heavily recruited players in the country is offensive lineman Parker Boudreaux from Orlando. He reports over 70 offers at this point. That's practically everybody. About 15 of those programs have separated from the pack. Clemson is firmly in that group. He visited Clemson for the North Carolina game last season, raved about the experience, returning for Junior Day Saturday, bringing his parents and his two sisters along. And he's never named a favorite because he doesn't have one, so there's no reason to think a commitment will occur this weekend. That's not going to happen. He wants to take more visits. He wants to take his official visits, but he said Clemson is very strong on his list. Clemson, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State, Iowa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, some of the ones that he mentioned. Also, Florida is a factor with him. He visited there recently. Florida State and Miami, they are not factors with him. He went to games at Penn State and Miami last year. He's been to Auburn twice. He's also going to go to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and possibly Mississippi State. Working in Clemson's favor, too, is the fact that his trainer is Brian Stamper, a 4-year starter on the offensive line at Vandy when Robbie Caldwell was the coach there. So obviously they have a very close relationship. Now, South Carolina's also offered him, and they do plan to stop by South Carolina on their way home from Clemson this weekend. Another offensive lineman headed to Clemson Saturday, Luke Elder from LaGrange, Georgia. USC is also an offer for him. He has about 15 offers. Ole Miss, Cal, Mississippi State, North Carolina, Tennessee, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Missouri, Florida State, Vandy. Some of the others. Has not yet formulated a favorites list, but he feels that USC and Clemson will be on it. He was at USC's Junior Day in January, stopped by Clemson on his way home, and as I said, he's going to be back at Clemson on Saturday. He likes both schools right now. He's also been to North Carolina, Duke, Georgia Tech, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama. South Carolina has offered wide receiver Isaiah Johnson of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. He's a Miami commitment. The nation's #1 rated defensive end, if you go by rankings, Shavar Manuel from IMG Academy, plans to visit Clemson this spring. And in basketball, USC remains in the hunt with Levi Cook, the 6'10 center from the prep school in West Virginia. He'll take visits later on this month, and USC probably is going to get one. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth up at Clemson. Tiger baseball team trying to make a run here at Winthrop in the bottom of the eighth. They've scored once. They've got runners on first and second. They've got nobody out. They trail 5-3 to Winthrop, 5-13-0 for the Eagles, 3-7-2 for the Tigers. Now, South Carolina about to get underway with its game against Charleston Southern. Let's look at the lineup because there were supposed to be some changes in the lineup for tonight's game. Gene Cone is going to play center. That's not a change. Elliot Caldwell's in right. That is not a change. Martin is at first. Destino's DHing. Max Schrock is in left field. That is a change. Oh, yeah, Caldwell being in right, that is a change. He's replacing Bright out there. So Schrock is in left. Caldwell is in right. Gore is the shortstop. Arendis is at third. Koch is behind the plate. And Mooney is at second base. So, you know, I think one thing Chad Holbrook needs to do is settle on the lineup and run with it for a while. I think sometimes you have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to talent. You try to play everybody, but in baseball pro, you know, I think it's better to have an everyday starting lineup that you can run out there day after day after day and let them work their way out of the kinks. Seems to me like he's certainly having a hard time deciding who his best 8 everyday players are.
Yeah, sometimes that's difficult, but, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm spoiled because watching some of the managers, and I know there's a difference between college and the major leagues, but watching a lot of managers who use their roster a lot, they tend to plug in players who are ready to play because they play them often. You know, it's almost like you play a set lineup for maybe 3-4 games in a row, and then you make a subtle change here. This guy needs some at-bats because I'm going to need him late. And it's always good to have guys who have some playing experience because even at the college level, there's going to be an injury or two here or there, and you want the guys that at least have had some experience. But I think you're right. He's caught in between a rock and a hard place because he's got some talented freshmen, and he knows he's got to give them their baptismal under fire by getting them some at-bats. But at the same time, that's at the expense of maybe taking a more veteran player out of the lineup. So he's in a quandary right now, but I know what he's doing. He's kind of coaching to get to the SEC and see where his lineup is going to be once they start conference play.
You might be right about that. Kind of iron out the kinks here, give everybody sort of a tryout under fire, then have that solid 8 or 9 or 10 guys ready to go when SEC play gets here in a couple of weeks. Clemson still down 5-3. Tigers batting bottom of the 8th. They have runners on first and second.
So it's going good. About 4 weeks out now, so I'm about to be back to practice. Just learn from those guys so much, and it's just now out now, so I'm about to be back to practice. I was in Green today. Got to get back to it tomorrow probably.
Does the mentality change with so many guys that are gone? It's kind of like ready for the next group to step up and show what they're made of?
I don't think it changes. I think we just all just learn from those guys so much, and it's just next man.
Now, Clemson is pulled to within 5-4 with 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th. Tigers have the tying run on first with 2 men out, so they have the go-ahead run at the plate. And as far as how they've gotten things done in this inning, Duggar singled through the right side for an RBI, and Pinder singled to second base for an RBI. That's how the Tigers have scored their 2 runs thus far. They still trail 5-4. Bottom of the 8th, runner on first with 2 guys out. Meantime, at USC, Charleston Southern out to a 2-0 lead on the Gamecocks. They have a home run to right field by Waddell. And let's see, then a double. And then a fielding error by South Carolina put the runner on third. And then another double has scored the run. So very shaky start for South Carolina, down 2-0, top of the first against Charleston Southern. Gamecocks already committing an error in the field. Other baseball taking place today. Of course, the weather causing some problems, but around the ACC, NC State shut out East Carolina 7-0. Louisville beat Eastern Kentucky 7-6. Duke leads Liberty 3-2, bottom of the 8th. Ohio and Georgia Tech tied at 6, top of the 9th. Florida State 24, South Florida 1. That was in the top of the 9th. College of Charleston and Virginia Tech, that game was canceled. Continuing to check the college baseball scoreboard as we check the Big South for local teams in action today besides Winthrop and Charleston Southern. That is it. Nobody else is playing. So we move on down here to the Southern Conference and see if we have any other state teams in action. And Georgia is leading Furman 4-3 in the bottom of the sixth. And elsewhere around the SEC today, Florida, Central Florida, scoreless in the third. Vandy and Evansville in a delay in the fifth, tied at 3. Mississippi State, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, tied at 2. There's a delay in the sixth inning. Arkansas shut out Eastern Illinois 7-0. Kentucky beat Murray State 4-1. Middle Tennessee shutting out Tennessee 4-0, bottom of the second. And Kentucky and Murray State, they're playing a second game, bottom of the seventh. They are tied at 1. All right, 800-956-7266, our number. Lines are open. Continuing with your phone calls, Chip Weil coming up the bottom of the hour. We'll talk some NASCAR, also some comments from Clemson defensive tackle DJ Reader. You started out their spring practice yesterday, so they've got one practice under their belts. Not practicing today. They will be back practicing tomorrow. On our website, sportstalksc.com, our new poll question is this. This is a hot topic around college sports right now. And the question is, should the NCAA make freshmen ineligible? Again, you know, they were ineligible until 1972. Then they made a decision to make freshmen eligible. I don't know if it's been good or bad in the long run with the way things are today. If you made freshmen ineligible, with the current rules with the pros, you're talking about only getting 2 seasons maximum out of a lot of players who are good enough to go on and play in the professional leagues. So I don't know if the colleges want to do that. I know Mike Slive from the SEC commissioner, has come out and said that he's against it, not in favor of it. He likes the fact that the freshmen are able to play and provide competition. So far, our voters on the website, 80% pro are saying no. They should freshmen ineligible once again.
Well, you know, I hate to say that, you know, sometimes people do things for cosmetic reasons, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is another one of those suggestions that probably, when you trace it down, has come back from the Big Ten. And the Big Ten always wants to seem that they're the major ogre conference that really considers the academic prowess of their students. So they may make the suggestion, even though they know there's no way in heck that it's going to pass, but they're going to look good because they made the suggestion. You know,
well, it's kind of like what Steve Spurrier did. I mean, when Spurrier first came out years ago with his idea of paying players in some form or fashion, you know, people looked at him like he was crazy. He was the first one, really the first big name to step out of the box and say, let's do this. Let's start providing some compensation for these guys. And he never backed away from it. You know, he continued to beat that drum at every opportunity. And eventually, look what it got. It got done. Eventually, it did get passed by the NCAA.
Well, you know, it comes from a guy that has a lot of cachet. You know, he's been a tremendous coach, but he's also been in the shoes as a student athlete, and he's a Heisman Trophy winner. So when a guy who's coached at his level for so long and has also been a college player and also a Heisman Trophy winner, you tend to listen to him, even if he has to bang the drum slowly until people will listen. You know, coming from a guy who's also an ex-player, I think carries a lot of weight.
Yeah, good point. Good point. South Carolina and Charleston Southern, they go to the bottom of the first, and Charleston Southern leads 2-0. They go to the ninth at Doug Kingsmore. Winthrop clinging to that 5-4 lead. Clemson could not get the tying run in, bottom of the eighth. They did score twice to make it a one-run game. So they go to the top of the ninth with Winthrop leading Clemson 5-4. 800-956-7266. 66 is the phone number. Join in on the program. Chip Weil coming up in just a few minutes, and also comments from Clemson defensive tackle DJ Reader. Going back to the question about freshmen being ineligible and whether or not it's a good thing, I mean, it would only help from an academic standpoint, and it would only re-emphasize what the number one mission of college is to be about pro, and that is getting your degree and having academics come first. I mean, that is the point, at least publicly, that would be made by the NCAA doing this. You look back at guys, I don't know, was anybody hurt in those years when freshmen were ineligible in terms of their future earning status? I mean, you still had guys who finished their career and went on and played pro sports. They just couldn't get to it as soon as they can today. Of course, everything has changed today compared to 30, 40 years ago as to the climate for a college athlete moving on to a professional sport earlier and earlier. So, from that standpoint, it's probably a good idea. Let's put the academic emphasis first back into college sports, and not the idea that we got to rush this kid out of high school. I'm not a big fan of this mid-year enrollment for these athletes, especially these football players. And I'm speaking just not athletically, but I'm thinking about it personally and socially. I mean, the last semester of your high school career, your high school days, are some of the best days of your life. And we've convinced these kids, parents and coaches alike and fans, that it's more important for you to go ahead and get into college and get started learning the playbook and get started learning the offense or the defensive scheme so you can play right away. That's become more important than enjoying your life and enjoying the last 4 or 5 months of high school with your buddies, the people that you grew up with, the people you went to kindergarten with, et cetera, that you have developed your lifelong friendships with. So I have a problem with that, to be quite honest with you. This would obviously be a way to take that kind of pressure off recruiting and take that kind of pressure off the kids coming out of high school. Of course, today's kid wants to play right away. He's got that in his mindset. These big-time players, they're so hyped up by the time they get to college. They want to play. They expect to play right away. And I think that's why in some cases you have problems dealing with the kids when they don't get that opportunity.
It is weird, but I mean, we got used to it during the bowl practices and things like that. But it's something to get used to because he's been here since I've been here.
All right, South Carolina did not score in the bottom of the first, and so they go to the top of the second in Columbia. Charleston Southern leading 2-0. Winthrop, runner on second with 1 out, leading the Tigers 5-4 over Doug Kingsmore. So the post-series hangover affecting both the Gamecocks and the Tigers thus far in their games today. Now, no football at Clemson today. They'll pick it back up tomorrow with practice number 2 of 15 of spring practice. Ron Peak back out at practice and looking to get back to full speed, of course, having dealt with knee injuries and other injuries throughout his career. But they say he looks good and he's ready to go. But now he's got to get used to not having Chad Morris around anymore to run the offense.
It is weird, but, I mean, we got used to it during the bowl practices and things like that. But it's something to get used to because he's been here since I've been here, and this is going to be the first season without him. So it's definitely something to get used to.
Do you expect the offense to kind of just be business as usual, just not beat? Will it look a little bit different, do you think, or what's your thoughts there?
I don't think it's going to be. Hopefully we'll see a lot of improvements from last year.
Sharon, I made the observation earlier when I was watching you out there. This might be the best I've seen you look in a couple of years. Is it the best you've felt? I mean, how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I agree because I'm finally healthy. Because, I wasn't out here last spring, and then fall camp I was just coming off an injury too. So I guess, yeah, probably is the best I felt because I'm actually healthy, doing everything with the team, all the workouts and everything.
What can a healthy Sharon Peak do in this offense with Deshaun Watson? What do you think you can accomplish this year?
I think I can help the team a lot. Just especially with a guy like Deshaun, he's definitely going to make me better.
Is it, because you've had some injuries here and there, is that it all in the back of your mind? Are you able to completely keep that up, play with a clear mind out there, or is it still kind of in the back of your mind like, hey, man, I don't want to make any missteps, that kind of thing?
I don't think I really think about it like that because, like I said, I've been doing everything with the team. So I've come out here and do drills and everything. I do everything just fine. I don't think about it at all, so it's kind of transferred onto the field.
Kind of weird at all during these first few months of off-season conditioning to not have Adam around. You and Adam have played together for such a long time. It must be maybe a little bit of a kind of a weird feeling to have him on the field.
It definitely is because I've been around Adam. We played middle school ball together too, so I don't really know football much without him. So it's definitely going to be weird this year. But good luck to him in the NFL though.
With this, if you healthy, talk about the differences in the game. You and Artavis and Mike. That we think that would probably be the starting 3. What do each of you bring to the table that's a little bit different?
Mike's going to bring that big plays, and Tavis going to bring that. He might catch a short pass and take it 90 yards. You just never know. Those are just some different beasts out there.
What about Sharon Peak? What can you bring to it?
Hopefully I can bring some leadership out there and just be a kind of a possession receiver and catch what's come to me.
Is it exciting? Is it exciting to see all these younger guys too? Travion Thompson, some of those guys starting to come on.
Yeah, I love it because it's like you kind of see them grow from where they were last year at fall camp and where they are now. They improved so much.
All right, Sharon Peak, hoping to stay healthy, hoping to have a big year in his final year at Clemson and catch a bunch of passes and see if he can get that speed back to where he was before he started banging that knee around. Back in a moment. Okay, let's update baseball. Bottom of the ninth. 5-4 Winthrop over Clemson. Tigers have the tying run on second. Cox led off with a single at the middle, and then White sacrificed him to second. So you got just what you want. Top of the order coming up, and the tying run is on second base. Tigers trying to pull this one out of the fire, at least send it into extra innings after trailing 5-1 going to the bottom of the eighth. They scored make it 5-2 going to the bottom of the eighth. They scored twice to make it 5-4. Now they have the tying run on second with one out. Meantime, at USC, bottom of the second, and the Gamecocks are still trailing Charleston Southern 2-0. They were in Atlanta Sunday, and somehow, some way, they got the race in through the fog, through the haze, through the cold, and Jimmy Johnson comes away with the win. That certainly made a lot of people happy. People love to see Jimmy Johnson win races, and he did so in a dominating fashion there late in the race, beating Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Joey Logano, and Matt Kenseth. We welcome Chip Weil, president of Darlington, to Sports Talk for his weekly visit. So they had to use the windshield wipers and the fog lights to get it done, but they got through the race, and Johnson comes away with another win. What's that, 71 for him?
Yes, 71 wins since 2002. That's a pretty incredible feat.
Yes, it is. And my goodness, by the time he's done, of course, with Gordon retiring, Jimmy Johnson still got a lot of good years left in him with a very strong team. He's more than likely, if he stays healthy and stays interested, going to eclipse the 100-victory mark at some point in time in his career.
And today's day and time, with as good and strong as the fields are each and every week when we unload at a different racetrack, for somebody to surpass 100 race wins is pretty impressive. Richard Petty, I mean, they race 50 or 60 times a year, and he had a dominant car just about every week. But now when half the field can win every time they unload, for somebody to surpass 100 victories is truly incredible.
All right, so 2 races in, 2 weekends of belly aching about the qualifying formats, first at Daytona and then again this past weekend in Atlanta. And, we don't want qualifying to be the emphasis of the weekend. The race is the emphasis, and if some guys and some drivers are not getting a chance even to qualify because of backups when they go through inspection, and then they run out of time, and guys aren't even getting a chance. That's not really fair, is it? Do they have to do something with the way they're running qualifying right now?
Well, everybody has the same rule book, and it is the team's job to push the envelope and try to get away with as much as possible, but they still know what they have to do in order to get their car through inspection. Now, I will say with the new rules package, I think there's a steeper learning curve than what NASCAR originally thought, and that includes their inspection process. So it's just a matter of them getting more comfortable with the inspection process, and the team's not pushing the envelope as far. So, I had this question earlier in the week from one of the other interviews that I did. At the end of the day, so if you want to get the inspection, don't break the rules. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's going to become smoother as the season progresses, the entire process of getting through inspection and getting out on the track to get into a qualifying run?
Absolutely. And if you look at the inspection process over the years, the first 2 or 3 weeks, especially when there's a significant rule change or rules package change, it takes a little bit of time. It takes the teams a little bit of time, a little bit of time. I can promise you, after last week and the growing pains that NASCAR went through, that they'll be prepared this weekend and they'll have a plan. If you look at what NASCAR does, when they make a mistake, and they're the first to admit when they make a mistake and they aren't prepared or they didn't do something right, they're quick to fix. And I promise you, they were in meetings on Monday and yesterday and today, making sure that when they get to Las Vegas this weekend and inspection process starts, they'll be ready to go.
Talking with Chip Wow from president of Darlington. So 2 races in, besides those who've been running at the front of the pack, who's caught your eye among drivers who've been more mid-pack, but maybe a little bit ahead of where you would have expected them to be?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a guy like A.J. Allmendinger, he's run well. He's top 10 in points right now. You look at a guy like Brett Moffitt, getting his first Sprint Cup Series start with Michael Waltrip Racing filling in for Brian Vickers. He finishes in the top 10 in his first career start with that team and in the series. That's pretty impressive. I think there are a lot of front runners. If you look at the 43 car of Eric Amarola, he's having a really solid start to the season. A lot of surprises, and if you look on the opposite end of the spectrum, Jeff Gordon, 2 DNFs in the first 2 races, and that's not like him. He's a very consistent race car driver. So it's still early in the season, but it's a fun thing to talk about, and there are a lot of new names up towards the front of the field, which is always exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just been bad luck for Gordon thus far, and I mean, not the way he wants his final season to begin. Now, he will still drive in some select races after this year, won't he? I mean, he's not entirely stepping away from the car.
No, I think he's entirely stepping away. I don't think he's using the word retirement the way the rest of us are, but I think he's committed to this being his last season. And, you know, you never say never. You look at what Mark Martin did. I feel like he retired 4 times, and I think a lot of people in the sport have learned from that. You don't ever want to say, I'll never get back in a race car, because it's in his DNA. He's a racer, and he wants to race. But his plan, I believe, after this season is to step away from the driving side of the sport and be more on the administrative side or the business side with Hendrick Motorsports. But again, it remains to be seen. We'll see how long that lasts. You know, when you've been in a race car every week for 23 years, it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's happening over at your place? I know we're a long way away from Labor Day weekend, but I'm sure things are happening, and you are doing some things to get the ball rolling towards your big race weekend.
Absolutely. Tickets are on sale. They went on sale the Wednesday of the Daytona 500. So if you don't have your tickets to the Bojangles Southern 500 and the Xfinity Series Sports Clips 200, you need to get them now. Go to DarlingtonRaceway.com. Not this weekend, but next Saturday morning, we're having our first event of the year. We're having our second annual Color Run, which is a 5K all on the racetrack property, where you do a run and you get color thrown on you. It's like cornstarch. It's a big thing these days, and last year was a huge success. We had about 5,000 people out at the racetrack doing that event, and in fact, with 2 weeks left to go, we've already surpassed our number from last year. So go to DarlingtonRaceway.com for all the details and to get signed up.
That sounds great. Have yourself a great rest of the week, and Las Vegas coming up on the agenda this weekend. That's always a great visit for the fans and the drivers, and the racing's pretty good out there too. So we look forward to talking with you about that next week.
Thank you. What happened with Clemson? Where are we at?
Oh, good point. Let's see. The Tigers and Winthrop. It's 5-4 Winthrop. There are 2 men out. There are runners on the corners, and it's a 2-2 count.
Oh, man. You're getting excited. I better flip it on.
About as dramatic as you can get. All right. Thank you very much, Chip. Appreciate that. 5-4. Clemson is trailing Winthrop. And let's see who's batting here. Runners on corners, 2-2 pitch. I got to pull up the game status here to see who's batting. Oh, Tyler Krieger. Well, he's the guy you'd like to have up there. Roman's on first, Cox is on third, and you got Krieger at the plate looking at a 2-2 pitch here at some point in time and trying to see if he can save the Tigers' bacon here against Winthrop. Let's see if we can get you some result here before we hit the break. Meantime, in Columbia, it's 2-0. South Carolina still trailing Charleston Southern as they go to the 3rd inning. And still no updates on the Krieger at bat. He might be fouling off a bunch of pitches, or they've been slow to update the game tracker. Back in a moment. Well, Krieger could not get it done for the Tigers. He strikes out looking, and Winthrop takes the win over Clemson at Doug Kingsmore, 5-4. And it's 5-13-0 for Winthrop, 4-11-2 for Clemson. The win goes to Josh Strong. He's 2-0. And the loss goes to Charlie Barnes, who falls to 1-1. On the day for the Tigers, Rollman had a couple of hits. Pender had a couple of hits, and White had a couple of hits. And let's see, who hit the I think there was a home run hit for the Tigers. Oakey hit a home run for Clemson in the game, and Gonzalez had a home run as well for Winthrop. Yeah, Oakey had a homer and 1 RBI. Gonzalez had a 3-run homer, which gave Winthrop its 5-2 lead, and they hold on to win 5-4. Meantime, South Carolina still trailing Charleston Southern, top of the third, 2-0. All right, back to Clemson football. DJ Reader, who will be counted on to help plug the holes up front from all those players they lost from last year. But he's a very talented player, was a baseball player for a while, gave that up, concentrating full-time on defense. And, of course, he realizes things will change because there's going to be a bunch of new faces on the defense.
I don't think it changes. I think we just all learn from those guys so much, and it's just next man up. We've always had that next man up mentality, even when somebody gets hurt. So we're just back to the next man up with the new season.
Can the defense be as good
I think
as it was last year? Last year was really, really good.
I think so. I think the defense will be just as good, never really drop off.
Any extra motivation for you guys because you went from kind of the top of the world as a defensive line to all of a sudden people really calling you the question mark?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of motivation for us, especially the guys who played behind those guys who left. We got a lot of playing time, and we're just really motivated to show people what we can do.
Where's the leadership going to come from?
Just the guys who play. I mean, you got me, guys like me, Shaq Lawson, Carlos Watkins, Kevin Dodd. All of us have played a lot, and then the whole secondary, all of us have played a lot. And then the linebackers with Ben and BJ back there, and Mike and Will, those two guys are real good.
What are some things you guys want to get out of the defense this spring?
I think we want to get better team chemistry. I know we're all familiar with each other, but we can never get more familiar with each other. And then just continue to work hard and just know that those leadership roles will step up.
How was it good to get out today and shake off the rust on?
It was really good. Get out there with just no pads on and get hands working and get the young guys adjusted and freshmen acclimated to what's going to be expected of them in college ball.
Is it too early to tell maybe some of the young guys who stood out?
I mean, I would say it's too early to tell. It's their first practice. When I had my first practice, it was eye-opening. So, I mean, we'll start to see later on in spring practice, and then even through fall camp, you'll see some of them start to adjust and they'll click.
When did you drop a weight on your toe?
I dropped the weight on my toe like the first week of winter workouts. We had just started winter workouts, and I dropped it on there.
So February or
February.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in the beginning of February, early February.
Worst pain you've ever felt?
No, it actually wasn't that bad. I thought nothing was wrong. I thought you stepped on your toe or something, it was just gonna walk it off. Then I went and got the X-rays, and it was broken. Yeah. But then I noticed when I started trying to do stuff after that, it hurt real bad trying to push off it or anything. It was real tough.
You should be back tomorrow.
I should be out of green tomorrow, but I don't know. They'll probably keep me in green for a couple more days, and then I'll probably do the scrimmage on Saturday. I'll probably practice, but I don't know. It depends on what Danny says.
You ever dropped a weight on your foot before?
No, I was the first time ever.
Never in high school? Junior high?
No. I was real cautious about it. I was just doing power cleans, and I didn't have any weight on the bar, and so I just dropped it, not thinking about it, because usually it bounced back up with no weight. It doesn't bounce; it just fell straight down.
So it was a bar.
Yeah, it was really the bar.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Fell straight on it. Yeah, it was tough.
Didn't feel good, did it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
We heard last year how the rise to the number one defense kind of started with those mat drills. What have you seen out of these guys so far?
These guys work. And that's what I like. There's no drop off from us working and them working. They came right in, coming in January. Usually these freshmen get wet feet in January, and those guys came in and started working as soon as they got here. And we had that work mentality as a defense and as an offense. Everybody wanted to come in and just prove that we wanted to make a run for the best season we've ever had. So that's what everybody's been up to.
Okay, there you go, DJ Reader. Yeah, I bet you it did hurt when he dropped that weight on his toe. I mean, good gracious. And have you ever dropped a weight on your toe before? I would certainly hopefully that's the first time and the last time that will ever happen to him, because that can't be any fun whatsoever. But he'll be a guy the Tigers will be counting on up front. Scott Pagano will be another one, another new guy they'll be counting on, help fill in up front. Of course, Carlos Watkins. They have got plenty of talented defensive players up front, plenty of good size and strength up there, too. What they don't have is a lot of experience, and we'll see how long it takes them to kind of get that attitude going and playing with that confidence that last year's defense had, especially up front. Catch up on some final things here before we leave you for the basketball game. South Carolina on the board now against Charleston Southern. Kyle Martin, an RBI single to right field, gets the run home for the Gamecocks. They're down 2-1, bottom of the third. Runners on first and second. They've got no one out in the inning. Upstate playing basketball in their tournament. Pro, what you got?
With 6 minutes to go before the half, Upstate all over Kennesaw State, 28-13. With 5 minutes to go in the half. So Upstate look like they're the third seed, that they're maybe moving on in the Atlantic Sun tournament. At halftime, North Carolina 39, Georgia Tech 21. That game is being played in Atlanta. One game in progress tonight right now, three others late in the SEC, and that's Ole Miss. Well, that's Alabama leading Ole Miss at the half, 30-27. Of course, all eyes will be on Athens, Georgia, for a basketball game, believe it or not, as number one Kentucky comes in there. Their last chance to lose.
Not
the regular
necessarily
season game.
all eyes. Some eyes are going to be on Little John Coliseum.
Well, that's true.
For the 9 o'clock tip.
How much blue will be in Athens tonight? That would be interesting.
Well, I mean, they can squeeze you out because it's not a big arena, and if they fill it up with their students and their fans, I can't believe there'll be a bunch of Kentucky fans there. Now, Clemson going for the season sweep of NC State. The Tigers won in Raleigh back on January 28th, played one of their best games of the year. They won 68-57. As I recall in that game, they shot the ball extremely well.
Yes.
And built a pretty sizable lead against the Wolfpack, and pretty much controlled things the whole way. Let's see here if I can find that box score very quickly. That particular night in Raleigh, Tigers shot 52% in the second half, 47% for the game, hit 6 3-pointers, 12 of 19 from the line, and they won it 68-57. They had the big first half. Remember, they were up 36-16 at halftime, and went on to win that game. So we'll see if they're able to get the sweep. Jordan Roper had a particularly big game that night with 18 points. That was kind of the beginning, if I remember correctly, of when he got hot and kind of carried the offense there for a little while.
I tell you what, if Dabo Sweeney is looking for any depth on his offensive line, just make sure that BJ Anya doesn't get on the bus with NC State. That guy, 6'9", 295 pounds for NC State. He's scary when he stands in the paint.
All right, quick update from Carolina Stadium. The Gamecocks have now taken the lead on Charleston Southern. They've pushed across 3 runs. In the bottom of the third, they lead it 3-2. Don't forget to catch our post-game coverage of Clemson NC State tonight on the website, sportstalksc.com. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, State Man. Thanks to the folks here at Clemson, Sammy Blackman, Tim Beret. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.